everyone, guess what time it is? It is canning season. Officially has begun. We're gonna start out with one of my favorites and probably what I'm most known for, which is pickles. We're gonna start out with some Polish Dill. So you're gonna get to watch the process, see how it's going, learn a few tips and tricks, but I'm not gonna give all my secrets away right away. So you're gonna have to watch and see what I talk about. Hope you enjoyed this, the pickle episode.
All right, so no matter what kind of pickles you're making, they pretty much start the exact same way. Here's the trick. You gotta keep them cold. No matter what you do, you gotta keep them cold. From the time you pick them to the time they go into the jars, they have to be cold. So I usually put mine in the fridge. Even if I'm only picking a couple, they go in the fridge. I pull them out. When they're ready to go, they go into water. Cold water, make sure it's, good cold water. You don't have to like ice in it or anything like that, but just make sure it's cold. And the other thing that I always do while I'm doing this is I put them back in the water after I slice them. A lot of people don't do that, and they get good pickles. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying mine are better. So I pretty much only do rounds. I have done spears before. I've done like chunks of like end pieces, that kind of thing before. But generally I just do rounds. So my rounds, all about that big, meaning I keep my cucumbers all about that big. The problem with cucumbers is they can go from being the right size to being too big in about 12 hours. So when your cucumbers start coming on, you almost have to check them twice a day, if not more. Probably about as big as you want to go. You don't want to get any bigger than this because your rounds are going to get huge. Some people really like these because they like to make them into spears, which is fine. And actually, I have a jar by me. I have a big jar, but not a little jar. This is about the height of a pint jar, which is what I do most of my pickles in. So, cut the ends off and there you go. So if you wanted to make spears, you could easily make spears with this size of pickle or cucumber. They're not pickles yet. They haven't been pickled. So this guy is actually a little small to be picked, but if you notice how he's growing weird, I went ahead and picked him because otherwise it's going to be completely unusable. So you just cut off the part that's too small. You're not going to obviously get as much out of this whole guy, but he's going to at least give you something. Problem with this method is after a while you can't find the cucumbers. Okay, so now that I got all of the cucumbers sliced, and as you can tell, most of them are about the same size. There's a few smaller, a few bigger, which is fine because you're going to need them when you pack. You're gonna need a few different sizes. The other thing I want to point out, homegrown cucumbers look like triangles. They look like indented triangles. You're not gonna see this when you buy pickles in the store. I'm not exactly sure what they do to make their cucumbers not do this, but I've never had them do anything but this. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Okay, so the pickling process is pretty simple. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't believe me, but I do use a mix. I use Mrs. Wages is what I use. Honestly, I've made it my own. I've used ones that is just the seasonings, and I've added salt to. But this is the absolute best I've found. So why not use it, right? So I already have 7 cups of water in here. We're going to be doing Polish dill pickles. 7 cups of water in here. To that, we're going to add 3 2/3 of vinegar. And then Polish dill is super easy. You just take this and you dump it in. Now, this is going to make a lot more pickling liquid than we're going to use today. And the reason is because it's made for 9 to 11 pounds of cucumbers, and I probably only have about 4 or 5 pounds over there. So we're going to save it. We're going to use it later. Make sure you are using a non-reactive pot, aka don't use something that a magnet sticks to. So if it's stainless steel, magnet's going to stick to that. You don't want to use that. This is not, therefore it will work. You want to put it on like a medium heat, and you're going to kind of basically mix it until it dissolves. And then you're going to let it go until it gets close to a simmer. You do not want it to boil. If it boils, it will ruin the pickles. Alright, so the pickling liquid is almost ready, but it's not quite. So we're going to go ahead and pack the jars. So I have the jars soaking in the sink. Now, you are supposed to heat the jars up. You know, boil water, heat the jars. Well, I like really, really hot water. Like, it scalds people hot water. So I don't have to do that. We just put them in our own hot water. And the other thing that you'll get more examples of later is this guy here. And I talk about him more in detail in the what I use video, so look for that. But yeah, all the lids are right in there. So get your jar. Your jar is going to be nice and hot because it's basically sterilized. And you're just going to pack them. And this is the part Brandon hates. He hates packing jars. Probably because there's a line between quality control and Rachel control, and it kind of crosses into that. So when you are packing jars, and this is good for pretty much anything that you cold pack. And cold packing is when you're doing exactly what I'm doing right now. A cold item going into a jar. That's cold packing. You want them as tight as physically possible. I mean, you want to shove them almost to the point where they're going to break. But you want to make sure you're leaving headspace because you got to give them room to breathe. now is we're actually going to put the pickling liquid into the jars. This setup has been about, basically we've developed this a couple years ago after a lot of messes and a lot of trial and error. So, basically what this does, this just makes cleanup easier. So that's why we do it this way. So the pickling liquid is nice and hot. It is not boiling. You just get those little tiny kind of bubbly things around the edges, and that's about as far as you want it to go. Again, non-reactive. This part probably is, but as long as that doesn't touch the liquid, you're fine. Why do you want non-reactive? Do you have any idea?
Because you said so.
Because I said so.
And Grandma said so.
And Grandma said so. That's really the big one. His grandma, not my grandma. My grandma does not can. She never has. I learned to can from my mom. Yeah. All right, so that's right there is why. You want to leave about a 1/4 inch headspace, and you want to make sure you get, you can take that one out, that's good. You want to make sure you get some of like the little peppercorns. So, Polish dill versus regular dill. Biggest difference, Polish dill is Polish dill because there are peppercorns involved.
Jar has a plethora.
Yeah. Like I said, 1/4 inch headspace. Any more than that, and you're going to blow lids. And that's not a pretty thing. Do this to you. So I caught up to you, I'm sorry.
She just loaded them weird so that way it looked like I was lazy and behind.
No, I was trying to make sure the peppercorns were kind of evenly distributed. Okay, so now the fun part is we get to water bath them, which you're gonna kind of get a taste of today, but you're just gonna get to see the process, and then I'll talk about it some other time. You'll have to watch later. This is just a small, this is the very beginning of our cucumbers coming on. I just barely had enough to do 6, which is about half of what a batch usually does. So pickling liquid is good for a week. You want to put it in some sort of storage container. I would suggest glass because you know for sure it's non-reactive. There was something in that. But yeah, I just usually put it in this, put the lid on it, and it's good to go. Good for a week, which means that the next batch I make is going to be ready for this. So we're going to get the water bath going and see you later. Okay, so we've already got the, at this point they are technically pickles in there. We made 6 pints, so they are going to be water baths. We went ahead, you can or you can't, it's totally up to you. Usually we put the whatever we're canning in and let it come up with the heat or with the water. It doesn't really matter if you do or not. Once you get a rolling hard boil, then for pickles, for pickle pints, it's 14 minutes. So that's when you start your timer, 14 minutes, and then you pull them out and hopefully they all pop shut. All right, so it's done. They've been boiling for 14 minutes. Grab some pot holders so I can get this out. It's crazy hot. Alrighty. Just get the water off the top. You don't have to get all the water off because they're hot enough that the water will basically evaporate. So once you pull these out, you're gonna want to let them sit, and they need to sit. Well, they need to seal. And depending on how they are, they all should seal pretty well. And then you're gonna let them sit overnight, and then you'll be done. There you go.
So what'd you think? You want to try them? They're not too hard, right? Yes, I use a mix, and they're really easy. So next time that you think, oh, this canning thing's too hard, hit me up. I'll help you out. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time. Bye, guys.